royal divorce, hacky sack, a scandal for the ages, and a visit by a future president.
It all made news this very week in decades past on Rochester's first TV station. Here's News 8 Now's Dave McKinley with News 8 Then.
10 years ago this week came word from the mother country that it was Splitsville for Fergie and Andrew. Here in the colonies, law enforcers began experimenting with a new weapon called a taser, and Rochester got its first Land's End this week in 1996. 20 years ago this week, boy, Dad's not going to like that one. As what remained of the old wooden deck on the Driving Park Bridge was being ripped up, Hamlin's favorite watering hole, the Homestead Hotel, burned down. Hacky sack was the new craze, taking the nation by storm. Mario Cuomo tapped Chautauqua County Congressman Stan Lundeen to be his running mate for the upcoming race for governor, and in Webster.
Any comment about this proceeding this morning?
Negative.
Stephen Glagowski, 23, was charged with killing his mother inside their Webster home. He later claimed he was influenced to do it by the Led Zeppelin song Stairway to Heaven. Glagowski would have been eligible for parole today, but hanged himself in his cell at the Auburn Correctional Facility 7 years after being arrested this week in 1986. 30 years ago this week, even bigger shockwaves in Rochester and beyond when a local nun was arrested and charged with murder. Her name was Sister Maureen, and she was accused of suffocating a baby she gave birth to inside a Brighton convent. In a case which garnered global headlines, she first denied being pregnant, then claimed it was a virgin birth, and was eventually found legally insane and acquitted. The whole sordid affair was the impetus of a movie made a decade later, which would garner 3 Academy Award nominations. Pop Quiz named the movie spawned of the real-life events which surfaced here in Rochester this week in 1976. 40 years ago this week, the commencement speaker at the University of Rochester was the man who'd be elected president 2 years later, although Richard Nixon's appearance here came over the objection of most of the U of R faculty, which protested after he'd recently supported the censure of a Rutgers University professor who'd spoken out against the Vietnam War. And with the decision made to phase out the farm at the Monroe County Penitentiary, some 250 fine prison swine would soon find themselves on the auction block. The order to part with the piggies was given by County Manager Gordon Howe and backed by the Board of Supervisors. Say, imagine that. A time when politicians were not wedded to pork. Had to have been back in the days of News 8 Then.
Now the answer to this week's News 8 Then pop quiz about the movie inspired by a real-life scandal which surfaced here in Rochester 30 years ago this week.
It involved the case of a nun, Sister Maureen, who was charged with murder for allegedly smothering a baby she gave birth to in a Brighton convent. Several years after she was found not guilty by reason of insanity, the movie Agnes of God was released. Starred Jane Fonda and is based on the story of Sister Maureen. The film was nominated for 3 Academy Awards.